Hi, everyone. This is Valerie Bono from Proactive, and you're listening to the Building Bite podcast. Today's episode spotlights Jake Concannon, Vice President of Gallagher's construction practice. You do not want to miss today's episode where Jake shares his 3 bold predictions for the future of the construction industry. For more information on this episode and others, check out the Building Bite at buildwithproactive.com. Welcome to the Building Bite podcast, a podcast for construction contractors, owners, and insurance professionals, where you can hear from experts on key topics to help you be successful. I'm Valerie Bono, one of the show's hosts and head of marketing and communications at Proactive. And today we are taking a bite out of insurance with our special guest, who is a true leader in the construction industry, Jake Concannon. Jake is Vice President in Gallagher's National Construction Practice. Jake, how are you doing today?
Really good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and I'm here with my co-host, Mike Diercksen, who is our Senior Consultant of Innovation and Content Solutions at Proactive. Mike, how are you?
Doing great, Valerie. Really excited to hang out and talk with Jake a little bit more today and get things going.
Yes, thank you. So today we have a really exciting topic, and we're looking at the future, specifically on 3 bold predictions for the future of the construction industry. It's so great to have you on our show today, Jake. And before we dive into this topic, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Sure, be happy to. Classic Cinderella story out of Castro Valley, California, which is a little suburb next to Oakland, California. But I joke, but I love being from the Bay Area. It's where I grew up. Went to University of Arizona, and there I majored in political science, played rugby. Actually have a Gallagher teammate here who was my rugby teammate and college roommate, which we somehow swindled and is awesome. But after my junior year in college, I got an internship with Gallagher in Los Angeles and joined the next year, totally drank the Kool-Aid, loved the company, and ended up in our construction division. No construction background whatsoever, but got into it, loved it, rotated through a bunch of different departments within the services we provide. So we provide insurance and risk management services for contractors, owners, and anyone in the building industry. And I got super into all of the different types of programs they could buy and rotated through all of those. And now today I work with owners, GCs, trade contractors as the lead exec, helping them strategize, design, procure, manage their insurance and risk programs.
That's really interesting, Jake. And not everyone finds that connection right away. So what was it about Gallagher that really zeroed you in on sticking around there with that internship? It sounds really dynamic.
Oh, totally the culture. I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I thought I'd go to law school. I majored in political science and thought that was the standard route. Then I got this internship, and oh man, one day I went to a meeting with one of our senior construction people and one of Gallagher's biggest construction clients, who got me into one of the topics we're going to talk about later today, which is kind of interesting, full circle. And I just saw these incredibly talented, smart, high functioning people in this room figuring out problem solving, how to build a building, and how where insurance came in this particular meeting, but how to build a building in an extremely tight space in California, and all the different business, risk, and construction elements that they needed to know to be successful on such a small, tight margin. It blew my mind that contractors could be so successful with the risks they take and the low margins that they can they work off of. And I just right then and there I was like, oh, I got to figure out more and get into this industry.
That's excellent. Yeah, you can't replace on-job learning, right? Being in the room, being in that meeting really exposed you to all those things. And because of that, look at the career you've had. So that's excellent, Jake. Jumping right in though. So I think we had, like we said, three bold predictions. for the construction industry looking 10 years from now in 2032, what would your first prediction be?
I want to put a little caveat to this. I'm no Nostradamus. These are, and I don't know how bold these are, but in my role, I'm very fortunate. I get to sit in meetings with leadership of amazing large construction development builder companies and get to hear what they're thinking about, what they're looking at. And that ability to be in those meetings has given me, I think, a very interesting insight into where the world's going, or where I think it's going. So don't know how bold these are and don't know how accurate they are, but I'm excited to talk with you today about where we see the industry heading based on all the different companies we work with and what we talk about with them as they plan for their future. There's a lot of avenues we could go down. Today, man, we could talk about material escalation issues. We could talk about labor force challenges, cyber issues, volatility in different markets like insurance and commodities, vaccine mandates. How do you manage those? But rather than go into those, I'd rather talk about a little broader, big picture. Where do we think you should be focusing your time if you're running a big construction building company? And the number one area we think is talent and culture.
I think we've been hearing that a lot in this industry. What's your take on it?
Again, not a shocking concept or a new concept, but my role, our role, Gallagher, we look through the risk management lens, but try to be as broad thinking with that lens as we can be. So what is a company's number one asset? People. So what's the number one risk? In our mind, it's people. Finding, retaining, developing talent, creating a culture where everyone in the ship is rowing the same direction is so crucial. Not just in the future, today, and everyone's trying to figure that out. So again, it's not this bold prediction, but where is the future taking us? With good people, you can handle any new challenges or things you have to navigate or new changes in the world, no matter what it is. So if you have good people, you can figure it out. And times have changed. We had a little pandemic a few years ago that started. Now maybe endemic, not sure, but so quickly the world was turned upside down. And our understanding of how we work, how we interact with each other, and what we can do to accomplish the goals we need to has completely changed. 15 years ago, millennials were entering the workforce, and that was like the big, I'm a millennial, and that was like, oh gosh, here they come. What are they going to be like? Now we got millennials, Gen Z, got Gen X, you got boomers still in the workforce. That's a wide range of paradigms, experiences, and a bunch of backgrounds. So embracing that and that diversity of backgrounds and opinions is so crucial. There's a smaller pool to pull from for construction companies. Not just construction, but every business has a smaller pool of talent to pull from. So how are you in the new going forward going to be a differentiator of your company to attract and retain that talent? There's a lot of different ways companies can approach that. But that is, to us, the key in the ever-changing, ever-adapting world. How do you keep people, not just at your company, but in the industry? I think about the skilled labor shortage and how few people coming out of high school just go into the trades. It's not talked about in high schools or promoted. It's almost like shunned, which is not a good thing. It should be promoted that college isn't the answer for everyone. We need more people in these trades. So that's a piece of all of this, but overall, how can you as a business differentiate yourself? And some of those things we see are work-life balance. Yeah, it's buzzword these days. That's what the different generations want, to be able to, hey, on Friday, I've got 2 kids in preschool and I just can't do what I need to do for work today, but I'll get it done the other days. Are you going to be a flexible company, or are you going to be the company that just says this is the way and you have to do it? I think this is an old school industry at times. So those that adapt and are able to retain the best people, no matter what way that is, they're going to be positioned to be successful.
I couldn't agree more, Jake. It's definitely impossible to predict the future. without really analyzing the current market, right? And COVID has certainly changed that up. Fingers crossed, we move from pandemic to endemic. It's certainly going in the right direction with that. Just out of curiosity, how do you think that impacts you as a broker? You're the trusted advisor to these GCs. What does that future look like? How does that role play a part of that in the future?
Oh man, if you have the answer to that, Michael, you're going to be a very rich person, because that's what we're all trying to figure out. And it's something that I think about. I'm a soldier in the Gallagher, the Gallagher army, but that's what our people are thinking about every day, is what is going to be that thing that we need to evolve with. As a broker, I wonder what startup, what's going to disrupt this industry, what technology or what new method of doing what we do is going to come in and change it, and trying to keep our fingers on that pulse so we can adapt with the times. Right now, tech and data, no matter what industry you're in, that's where everyone's looking. How do we capture the data we have and leverage it? Balancing all of that, I think in the future is going to be interesting. Balancing the tech versus the people. When I call a bank now, how many times do you have to hit a button to get to a person, when your question is just it's a simple question, but it doesn't fit any of the algorithms questions that AI is giving you? What is going to change with insurance? I wonder, is AI just going to be how the information flows between company and insurer and broker, and where's the broker's role? We'll see. I think, but at the end of the day, people still, and I think this has actually been increased by the pandemic, people are going to do business with people they know and trust. And getting to know and trust people right now is a whole different ballgame than it was a few years ago. I don't think that's ever going to change. I think people are always going to work with people they trust. How that trust is developed, how that credibility is developed, that's going to change throughout time, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Certainly, a few years ago, what was Zoom, right? No one knew what Zoom was. Now it's Zoom, Teams, you name it. Everyone's doing those things. So it's certainly changed. The one thing that hasn't changed is the annoying banks. They got rid of that. If you hit 0, you get to the person right away. They know, so now they don't let you do that. Keeping this moving, Jake, let's get to that second prediction. What do you think would be the next thing beyond that?
Well, it kind of falls in line with where I was going with that last one, which is information and tech.
Mm-hmm.
The companies in this industry that invest and put their IT, information and tech, maybe probably separate them into their C-suite, they're going to have an advantage, I think. And why I think that is data. Again, we're back to data. Everyone's trying to capture it. Okay, how do you use it? What do you do with it? I think you need a CIO or people that are really in tune with how to leverage that information to make sure your company is making the best decisions possible. So how do you incorporate that? And then tech. How much tech is available to businesses now? It's information overload. If you're a construction company, which software do I use for estimating, for project management, for accounting? So many options. How do I know which one to pick? If you have the right people, there it is, back to people again, the right people in good leadership positions, I think you'll be able to navigate those things. Because if you don't, you're going to be stuck trying to figure out and decide, paralysis of analysis. There's going to be so many options. You're going to be stuck trying to figure out what to do. And I also think soon the job site trailer is going to look like a lunar command center. Like you're going to go, and it's not that far away, that you go into a job site and computer screens everywhere to manage the job. How much more tech is that than 50 years ago? So I believe that companies that invest in the right people in IT are going to separate themselves. Not only from those areas and data and buying the right tech, but also this is just kind of wondering stuff. I wonder, the big conglomerates out there, the big, huge companies that have access to multiple areas of the supply chain that are hiring GCs currently, but will they one day become a master builder? I don't know, but that's the type of stuff we think about. And if they are, what does that mean for companies that aren't in that space now? How are you going to compete or adapt to compete with that type of company in the future, where a
Mm.
building owner could just go and say, hey, XYZ company, I'd like you to build this. I'd like you to design it. I'd like you to source it. And yeah, and it'll be done in a couple months. Right? Is that, I don't know, it seems a little crazy to think about, but I think we're not that far away from those concepts actually starting to take hold.
No, you're absolutely right. And I wonder something you said about that with the GCs and maybe these potential master builders. With tech adoption, right? We've always seen that the bigger players typically are able to research and kind of figure out what works for them. Do you think this is limited to just the big ENR top 100, or do you really see this expanding? Is this going to impact the regional, more localized GCs instead of just the top players?
Great question. iPhone, look how small this is. I think we're all in it. I think no matter
Mhm.
what size company you are, and bigger companies are going to be able to invest more and do different things than the startups. However, the technology that we all work with, phone, man, it's so rapidly changing and expanding that any size business, I think, can take advantage or use that sort of approach of let's make sure we have good IT information and tech people in our business, no matter what size, is helping me make my decisions. I also think risk should be in there too, but I'm a little biased.
So, what is the risk here, Jake? What do you think the future looks like for a firm that may be slower to adapt in technology or investing in that current talent pool?
You could be fine. I mean, you might be okay, and
Mhm.
just keep going and be successful. But I think those that actually invest in these areas, focus on them, and adopt them into what they do as a business, are gonna separate themselves from a competitive advantage. What is your overall goal as a business? That's a key question, I think. And if that question can be answered, then you can start putting these things in. But just from like the very current to as of today, what's a risk? Think about how many companies have been hacked in a cyber hack just since the start of the pandemic. And it's been going on for a while, but I couldn't sell cyber insurance like 5 years ago. Hey, you should buy this. It's a good deal. In fact, we don't need to do that. We'll just invest in security and we'll be okay. Now
Mhm.
it's a completely different market where, because of all the hacks that have happened, that companies are being turned away from even getting it unless you have the right protocols in place. You go to an IT director and they say, what does the insurance company know about why I should put these processes in place? Well, they're right, but they know a lot. They know a lot because they're seeing all these hacks and these ransoms that
Mhm.
they're paying. So I think the insurance industry is going to drive some cybersecurity pieces and investment in the IT departments of contractors. But the immediate risk is prevent yourself from losing a ton of money because you get hacked by someone in a foreign country and you're not ready for it. You don't have the backup systems in place. That's the immediate. The long term, again, these are all 10-year predictions, so how good are they? Don't know. But I think in the long term, if you want to be, best in class, the best in class are going to have that CIO, CTO as part of their C-suite.
Absolutely. So, Jake, these have been some great insights, and I know that these things are definitely going to have to get ironed out over the next 10 years or so as we continue to evolve as an industry. The last prediction that you had, which we spoke about earlier, I loved it. It circled back to something we had a former podcast guest, Cherie Haynes, on. She talked about it, and it was mass timber, right? And I listened to her and I listened to you, and you really believe it can help shape the future. Could you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and shout out to Cherie and the folks there. Work with her a lot on the sub default side, and she and I have talked a lot on the mass timber side. But this is the area that I get most excited about. People around me are sick of hearing me talk about it. I often get questions, "What is mass timber?" and why are you doing all this? It kind of became like everyone had a hobby in the pandemic. This was like my little rabbit hole that I dove down. I couldn't help myself. I felt compelled to try and dive into this problem. What's the problem? Let's start there. Mass timber. Mass timber is engineered wood materials that takes wood products, laminates them together in different processes, and then it becomes a much stronger, fire-resistant, water-resistant material that can be used to build different buildings than your standard light frame wood construction with a renewable source of material. So that's pretty cool. And then started diving into it more because I had a few clients who I'm very appreciative of, who have taught me so much, and that's the reason I'm talking about it here today. Start building these types of buildings. And when we went to buy the insurance, realized it's not that easy. And I kept asking why. So as I kept pulling on that thread of why, what I've learned is this material, I'm excited about it because the construction industry currently is responsible for 40% of carbon emissions around the globe. That's a pretty big number. And that's mainly concrete and steel manufacturing processes that lead to those emissions. And I'm not an environmentalist. Concrete and steel, we need those. They're here to stay. Don't want those to go away. I try my best to compost and do other things, but I'm not on this mission to change the paradigm because I'm just a hardcore environmentalist. It just, to me, it just makes sense. And what I found out in this process that makes sense is the mass timber products, cross laminated timber, CLT, glulam, and a few other types of materials in that family, they become fire resistive once that process is done. They become water resistive in ways. And that to me was, okay, I got to keep pulling on this. And then I heard a stat that this year, 400 mass timber buildings are in design and construction. Next 4 years, that'll be up to 4,000. By 2030, that'll be up to 10,000. Like, okay, I should pay more attention to this thing that's going on. And then I start seeing that Fortune 100 companies are investing heavily in it. There's a big Southeast-based retailer that is putting billions into this product. There's a major tech company from the West Coast that is building multiple major sites at their campus with this material, and universities around the US are using it. So those are really smart people, much smarter than me. And that to me caught my attention. Okay, they're going this direction. I better hop on board. And our clients are hopping on board too. So I just started diving into it. And what I keep finding out is there's a huge gap between insurers and builders of this product. I'm trying to close that gap because I truly believe that this is a product that is not only going to be good for the environment, but studies have showed that the occupants in these buildings like it more. There's less sick days. They're happier. It's faster to construct. It's potentially cheaper in certain circumstances, not always, but potentially. But man, and a renewable source of a material that actually takes carbon in versus emitting it. All of those things seem like a good thing to me and seem just very simple. Again, not an environmentalist, just very simple and feels like the right thing to do to try and push this product forward. What I've found in the process, insurance companies not quite there with supporting it from a rate and capacity side. And that's okay. I don't agree with it. That's okay. That's where they're at. But it's being treated just like light frame construction. And so my mission has been, how do I help insurers see that this is a separate thing so this product can get used and more of this product can be built with and we help the environment. It's kind of a weird dynamic where if insurers lower their rates, increase capacity, more can get built, and then if more is built, it'll help everybody in a weird way. So I get very excited about it.
Kind of a catch-22, Jake, right? Insurance has to help lower that barrier to entry by maybe better understanding, but part of better understanding is by having more data points to pull from. So it's an interesting thought, and it's certainly something you mentioned those stats. It sounds like it's exploding, right? And I know we have listeners all over the country, so it's an interesting thought to realize that hey, maybe if you're in some of those hotspot areas, you're seeing a lot of this, but it seems like more is on the way, regardless of where you are in the continental US. So very exciting indeed.
Totally. It's not just the Pacific Northwest, and I'm kind of part of that where I am in San Francisco. It's not just us out here on the West Coast that are embracing this. The Northeast, the Southeast actually has the biggest potential for growth with this, especially with how much private forest land there is in the Southeast. So this is a huge opportunity economically for the US to start having another material that we can outsource to our own selves and other countries. I get excited about it. Plus, it's strong. You can build tall buildings with it now. It lends itself to prefabrication and modular type constructions, again, for schedule enhancements. And it's good for the environment. That is so, I think, compelling in that you can do all of these things. Plus, what other material do we have out there that can help with the labor challenges we have? So skilled labor, hard to find, less labor on mass timber. Carbon emissions, okay, we got that check. What about speed of construction? I heard recently from a client building a mass timber job that their schedule was expected to be, I think it was 30 weeks, and they topped out in 12. And so it's fast. The pre-con period extended, get the right team, everyone together correctly, and it can go well. But the construction itself is not that complicated from what I hear. And that's kind of the motto or the flag I keep trying to wave, which is this is different than light frame. It's good, it's better, it's less risky, and we should be supporting it. And I'm trying every angle I can. ESG scores, for example. Like, hey, if you insure more mass timber, does that help your investment grade? I don't know, but maybe it could. So if you have any angles for me to help convince insurers to lower rates on it, I really would appreciate it.
Jake, just hearing you talk about the opportunity, right, with mass timber, I really think holistically it's going to resonate with a lot of our listeners because as a whole, the construction industry has been slow to change, right? However, it's getting more open to adapting to changes. But what is it about mass timber that makes you think, okay, the industry as a whole could change, right? It's okay to accept some new areas of practice and new efficiencies in the marketplace.
Yeah, in this case, I find it interesting that the builders, the engineers, and the builders of this are the ones driving change. That the industry does get tagged with a slow to progress label, but in this particular case, I'd say it's the insurance industry, which is also slow to adapt, and understandably so. It's a new product, new material, but the builders are gung ho. Like the major developers in the US and in Canada, North America. This is going on in Europe, in Austria, in Germany, in Australia. It's all over the globe that this product's being used and expanding on a daily basis. I mentioned those numbers of how many jobs are in design or construction are expected. That is fascinating to me that the construction industry can turn from a carbon emitter to a carbon sink. Like, and that is really cool. So it's actually the construction industry driving this change in the industry. And where I come in or we come in is how do we get others to accept that this is, even though it's new, it's different, and there's not a lot of data points yet. I think there's a lot, but not enough that have been connected in a way to get people comfortable to support it in a way we'd like. Man, it's going to be here, or it's already here, really. And in the next 5 to 10 years, I think there's going to be so much of it. Everyone's going to have to figure out how do we work with it. It kind of reminds me of solar a little bit in the recession when renewable energy became a big thing that companies jumped into when other construction was way down. And there was a lot of insurers in that at that time that were nervous about insuring solar or any power output sort of things. We got around that, and today, not an issue. I hope that that's the same case with mass timber, that in 5 years, when you have me on your podcast again and you're talking to the billions of people that you talk to, that we're talking about how cool it is that there's mass timber all over the globe.
Well, I hope we don't have to wait 5 years to have you back on, Jake. But it's it's interesting, right? You're so passionate. It certainly the numbers are staggering. There's always going to be some detractors, right? There's always going to be some naysayers that are going to hear this and go, what about this? I know there was a large default that happened. A lot of people pointed to that with mass timber and said, this is the reason why it can't work. I mean, what would you say to that? What would you say to that instance, and maybe to those people who think because of that, it wouldn't be able to move forward?
They could be right. I disagree with them for a variety of reasons. Mainly, I wouldn't classify the company I think you're talking about. I wouldn't classify that company's close or shut down as a mass timber failure. I think there's a whole bunch of other dynamics, and I'm not in tune with exactly all of the stuff. Wasn't part of it, so not in a place to say. But from the outside looking in, I wouldn't think of it as a mass timber thing. I think there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on that led to that. But I kind of think of that company like Napster, if anyone listening remembers who they are, if you're older than 35. To streaming music, Napster was the first thing that disrupted everything, right? It changed the game. They're no longer around, but now I go on my phone, I've got Spotify, I've got Apple Music, I've got Amazon Music. Their concept is out there. Same with Apple. Apple did not create the tablet. Someone else did. They just made it better. So I think a lot of lessons are going to be learned from this. A lot of smart people were involved in that and are going to branch out and do great things in other companies. But ultimately, I believe when I hear those naysayers, it's hard for me not to laugh, because I just had this come up recently where people always go to the failure that everyone knows. What was in the news? And there was a job out there a few years ago where there was an issue with the CLT. They go, see, this is why it can't work. And my argument to those folks with that particular case is, yeah, I've got tons of concrete jobs or steel jobs I can show you where things went terrible. People got hurt, the buildings collapsed, but we don't talk about those with concrete and steel. Those get preferred insurance rates because there's data, history. So again, I get that piece too, but that's where my struggle is, hey, this one job in this one part of the country where we figured out what happened and we changed the process, we're going to hang our hat on that as why we don't think this is a good risk to take on, when all the preferred construction projects, there's so many issues that happen that just don't make it into the news. You don't hear about that. We unfortunately see at times, and that's kind of where I'm trying to do with folks is, hey, let's pull back. Yes, that situation was not good, but compared to all the alternatives, actually pretty good. Well, like that, there's only these few of all of thousands of buildings that have been built. So that'd be my counter. I'm sure smarter people have really better counters to that, but I'd love to talk with them if they do.
Yeah, certainly an interesting discussion for sure. And I think you are definitely the first person to reference Napster on the podcast. So I appreciate that from deep down in my millennial heart to hear Napster brought up. Jake, with that being said, we're going to keep an eye on this over the next 10 years or so and really see how much of this plays out. But we always like to give our audience an action item, something they can do today, right? So if I'm a GC or a broker or insured or carrier, excuse me, and I'm listening to this podcast talking about, where we might be going, what's something I can do today to start better preparing for that?
I am a simple person, so I like to keep things simple. And this isn't maybe going to wow anybody, but I think it's the core of being successful. Surround yourself with good advisors, good people, high character, high quality, smart people that you trust and that are awesome in their space. Specialized knowledge from trusted resources going forward is going to be so crucial to your success. No matter what you do and whatever those advisors look like, surround yourself with good people.
That is really great advice, Jake. And, I want to pivot just a little bit slightly. You're such a positive person, right? But there's got to be something that keeps you up at night professionally. I'd love to hear, what is that? What keeps you up at night?
Too many things. But really, at the end of the day, it's trying to keep one foot in the present and managing the day-to-day while also an eye on the future. Today we're talking about the future. We're that being mindful and present in today's world and also thinking about and planning for the future is such a hard thing to do and something I try to practice every day. I'm not successful at every day, but that's the type of stuff, making sure that with the volume of things coming at us or me on a daily basis, that I'm also taking the time every day to stop and think, what of all the things I have to do, what's going to be the most impactful and that's going to actually be most helpful to my clients and our future. Really, the thing that keeps me up is my kids and their future, but it all ties in together because if I can do a good job at taking care of my clients, then I can do a good job at taking care of my kids, I think, in a weird way. So they all tie together, but professionally, it's from maybe a little broader answer than you may have been looking for, but it's trying to balance that, focus on the big picture future and do the impactful things while also, all the contract reviews and quotes and other things we've got to do on a daily basis.
I really love that. So you're exposed to so much across the industry. What are you seeing today that gets you most energized about your work throughout the industry as a whole and also at Gallagher?
Well, we're talking about it, some of the things, but really the thing that gets me energized, people, people, it keeps coming back to that. The team I work with, I mentioned one of my best friends, my college roommate, my college teammate. I talk to him daily. We work together in the same role capacity on different accounts. It's so cool. But plus, the other people on that team, we have such a tight-knit group here at Gallagher, and there's about 20 to 30 of us that we just keep adding and no one leaves and we're friends. We like working with each other. We respect each other. We gloves come off but it's all part of being a family. And that family dynamic, that culture that I mentioned, that first piece, talent and culture, the culture we have that you can't, how do you describe something intangible? That gets me so pumped up every day that I know the people I'm working with have my back and I have theirs. Then the other side is the clients and the builders. Oh my gosh, what these folks do in razor thin margins. Hey, go build a 40-story building in a city. You have this much space and you need to do it in this much time. And here's how much money you have, and that's it. Like, and they do it and they're successful and they're positive and they're entrepreneurial and they figure it out. It's so amazing. I so admire what our clients do. And I feel lucky. I like to say I'm in the construction industry. Clients might say like, hey, no, you're our broker, stay over there, insurance guy. But I feel part of it, and watching what our clients do is really, really fun and gives me a chance to talk to you all today about what they're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is remarkable to think life cycle of a project, right? An empty lot could become something beautiful and constructed in such an awesome way. Jake, we always like to ask our guests, what is something fun and that our listeners might be surprised to hear about you? You're a very passionate guy, but come on, there's got to be something there, right, that people wouldn't necessarily think right about you.
So I love bragging about myself. Would be happy to. No, I thought about this a little bit because I am in risk and insurance, and I'm kind of a easygoing, random, like try anything type of guy. But I'm an adventurer, so I thought I'd talk about some of those adventures. But I don't actually. A bunch of people adventure. What is different about me that's a surprise? I'm an accomplished wedding officiant. I've done 3, and all have been standing ovation, very fun, went well, lots of stress, but also lots of fun. And getting to be a part of that sort of situation has been a blessing for me. And I'm not religious either. That's me personally, but as a wedding officiant, it's been cool to be asked a few times. And if anyone out there is looking, I have a good rate.
I'm getting married this summer, Jake. So, you might be on a short list in case something happens to our minister, but hopefully not going to happen. Lastly, Jake, this is the Building Bite. That is BIM Insurance Technology with the experts. You are our expert. we always do ask our guests, what are you taking a bite out of today? You're a San Francisco Bay Area guy. What's the number one spot? Where are you going if you get a chance to get that bite?
There's about 100 number one spots here. Very lucky, very fortunate where I live. We don't have the barbecue like you have in Raleigh, Valerie, or even some of the stuff you get up there in New York, Michael. But tonight happens to be a date night for me and my wife. Her birthday's this week, and we're going to go to one of our favorite San Francisco establishments called the Wayfair Tavern, which is a Tyler Florence restaurant. If anyone follows the chef stuff on whatever shows or channels those are on, but the food there is awesome. It's American fare from the late 1800s, early 1900s, turn of the century, over 100 years ago when San Francisco was a much different place. But what were they eating in San Francisco at that time is the inspiration there. Their fried chicken is unbelievable. I think Food and Wine magazine rated it top fried chicken country, maybe. So that they've got awesome raw bar. I think maybe a little beef tartare for a little appetizer tonight they do. So I'm excited and definitely going to wash it down with a nice adult beverage.
That sounds delicious. And to say they have some of the best fried chicken down in the South where I am, those are some fighting words. So next time I'm in the Bay Area, I will have to try this fried chicken.
Bring it. I'm from Oakland, California. I think we do it pretty good out here too.
Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show with us. If our listeners want to reach out to you or hook up with you, where do they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn at Jake Concannon, or you can email me at jake_concannon@ajg.com. And if anyone needs help finding those, I can give those to you to direct them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. It's been fun.
Thank you for listening to The Building Bite. This podcast has been brought to you by Proactive. Check us out on thebuildingbite.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media for all future The Building Bite news and updates. You can also find us on your favorite apps, including Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Amazon. If you have ideas for episode topics that we should cover on the show, or you know